Black like me. Black like me. Black like me.
You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Hey, good people. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. It's hard for me to believe that we're actually in our 11th season, that we've got over 200 episodes that are up. And I'm just ecstatic about that. I just think that that's exciting, and we get to continually build upon that. And I love being able to bring guests and noteworthy folks and people who are making changes in society and who are thought leaders. I love bringing them into the studio so that we can have meaningful discussions around their work. So let me tell you about our guest today, because he will not disappoint, and he helps us just to continue right on and having these great and these exciting conversations. Dr. Charles A. Taylor is a nationally recognized author, speaker, and consultant whose work has profoundly shaped the understanding and celebration of Juneteenth across the United States. A lifelong advocate for equity and inclusion, Dr. Taylor played a pivotal role in the movement to make Juneteenth a national holiday. His first book on Juneteenth was distributed to governors across the country, helping to inspire state-level recognition of the historic day and gaining endorsements from key national Juneteenth organizations. Dr. Taylor is an author of over a dozen books, and his latest work on Juneteenth continues his mission to honor the legacy of freedom and resilience, providing leaders with a deep historical perspective and a call to action for the future. Known for his ability to weave compelling narratives with actionable items, Dr. Taylor's writings bridge the gap between history and modern social justice movements. As a sought-after speaker, Dr. Taylor has delivered keynote addresses on Juneteenth and African American history at our country's leading colleges, universities, and communities nationwide. He was recently the keynote speaker at the National Juneteenth Observation Foundation's Juneteenth Prayer Breakfast at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., and his passionate presentations have educated and inspired audiences of all ages, solidifying his reputation as one of the foremost voices on Juneteenth and its enduring significance. Dr. Taylor, wow, that is so impressive. Let me just go in and just say this, that beyond writing and speaking, Dr. Taylor's contributions to the fight for justice and equity include producing award-winning documentaries like Decade of Discontent of Leaders in Madison's Black Renaissance, hosting innovative diversity initiatives. Dr. Taylor is considered an expert on Black history and holds a PhD from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where he majored in curriculum and instruction. He is a retired professor, dean, and founder of Roar Enterprises, Inc., a consulting firm that fosters diversity, project management, and Black history presentations nationwide. His community has given him many awards, including the Urban League's highest award and the City-County Martin Luther King Jr. Humanitarian Award. Dr. Taylor advocates for understanding Juneteenth's legacy and building a more inclusive future through his books, films, speeches, and community work. Man, you have been busy. Dr. Taylor, welcome to Black Like Me podcast. It is really an honor to have you here, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. That just means I'm old. That's all.
Yeah, man. You listen, you don't act and move like it. Listen, since this is your first time, I'll go easy on you.
Thank
but
you.
I love to have something that's called our black icebreakers. And so I just ask people a couple of questions. I don't take anybody's cards away or anything. I just like to have fun with folks. My first question for you is grits or cream of wheat, sir?
Grits.
Okay. Wait a minute. You sort of said that reluctantly, like you didn't say grits.
Well,
what's the story behind that?
After having an operation, I could only eat certain kinds of foods.
Okay.
And those are the kinds of foods that I had to eat. So if I never eat those kinds of foods again, I'm just fine.
When you did enjoy them, let's just say, pre-procedure meals, were your grits savory, sir, or did you put sugar in them?
Oh, I had to put sugar in them. Yeah. And
Did
milk.
you really?
Yep, sugar and milk.
See, okay, thank you. This conversation is going to go great. I don't know if I mentioned this to you. I'll get into this probably a little bit later, but my mom is from Hayti, Missouri, not too far from Cape Girardeau. So my grandmother used to work in Cape Girardeau, Sykeston.
Is that right?
Those places. But my mom was born and raised in Hayti, Missouri. I know when you're taking, is that 55, 57?
Yeah,
when you come off
55
right at that
south,
hotel
yep.
with the big Hayti sign.
Sure.
They lived in the Heights. They lived in
Wow.
Hayti Heights. And so when I saw, that's why when I was talking with you earlier
Yeah.
and I said, now, where are you from? And I said, wait a minute, Cape Girardeau. That's in my notes because my mom's from that area. So now I'm understanding where I might get my sugary grits from. That might be a Southeast Missouri thing. It's my grandmother would call it. She called it Southeast Missouri thing. But man, okay, so all right, I got you.
And my first, if I can,
Please.
my first wife was from Hayti, Missouri.
Was she really?
Yeah, so I'm sure she knew your mother.
'Cause it was
And
a
she probably
small community.
Yeah, so they all knew each other.
Oh my goodness.
I had no idea your mom was from
You
Hayti.
didn't. In fact, I yes, sir, and she speaks fondly of it. And I've been there about 3 times. But I love it just because of the stories that she told there.
Sure.
And off the air, I tell you a little bit of some wonderful things about my grandmother and her experience in Hayti. But
Okay.
I consider that as part of my roots. So we got to talk, sir. We got to talk. When you're growing up, did you or your family have plastic on furniture, or did you?
Yeah, we had plastic. It's in the living room.
Tell me about the living room. Did they call it the front room sometimes?
Yeah, they called it the front room, but I grew up in a shack, so it was not like your typical living room, but the furniture that we had was in plastic. Yeah.
Is it because it was light or white?
It wasn't white. It was colored furniture, but it was always
They just still
covered.
put that. They
Yeah,
always I
yeah.
love it. I love it. Listen, did you as you were growing up in Cape Girardeau, were you around grandparents or older people?
yeah.
So did they have a routine when it was storming? Like if it was lightning and storming, was there a routine about what y'all had to do while bad storms were taking place?
It probably was, but I can't remember them.
No, that's all right. I seem to remember people talking about closing the curtains, sometimes covering mirrors, turning off the lights, sitting still because the Lord is doing His work.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, does that
Now it
sounds
brings
familiar?
back some memories, yeah.
Okay, I got you. As you were growing up, did you experience some of the fun, superstitious stuff like not splitting a pole when you walk down the street? Are you familiar with that? About
I'm not
people?
so much with that, but if somebody swept your foot with a broom, that was bad luck.
That was bad. You don't do that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Those
okay,
kinds of things.
okay. And you're this accomplished author and filmmaker, and you write speeches and give speeches. So you probably never got spankings, but let's just say your siblings got spankings.
Hey, I got spanked.
You got spankings. Did your parents do what I call syllable spankings, where they talk to you while they're doing like, "Didn't I tell you not to"? Did you get those kinds of syllable spankings?
Oh yeah, all the time. So.
What would you get in trouble about? Staying out too late, throwing rocks?
Yeah, it was primarily staying out too late or disobeying, and I'll call them an order or directive, whatever you want to call them.
Oh my goodness.
So.
Oh man. Okay, so here's something I think may have come from my Missouri roots. It might have come through my grandmother's roots, which is also through Mississippi. But do you remember what the older folks would prescribe if you ever got a catfish bone stuck in your throat?
No.
Because my family would talk about doing white bread. Like they would take Wonder
right?
Bread and make you eat it if fish bones got stuck in your throat. Anyway, I was just curious if you all had that
No,
had that kind of
that.
practice.
Yeah.
I've got one more because I try to figure out which of these are more regional and which ones are generational. This usually happened around older people, particularly like older women. But they had a sense that if someone dreamed about fish, it meant something. Does that sound familiar?
We had different interpretations of dreams, but I don't remember that specific one.
In my family, old people would say someone was pregnant. They were gonna have a baby if they dreamed about fish. I think in the movie Soul Food, Big Mama said, "I dreamed about fish last night." I don't know if you remember that. If you saw that movie, they're like, "No, Mama, not me. Man, no, this is fun. Thank you for let me ask those questions. I love doing it because it can often show the cultural connection between Black people, whether we grew up in the South or in the Midwest. It's interesting that some of us have these same either debates about whether or not you put sugar in grits or what it means to dream about fish, or what it means to get away from the window when it's storming while the Lord's doing His work, and get off the phone and turn off all the electricity and turn off the TV.
Yep.
So no, thank you for letting me indulge.
Absolutely.
In that.
We didn't have air conditioning, so we had sticks in our windows. And we barely had screens in the windows, so the mosquitoes would come in. So, yeah, that brings back a lot of memories.
Oh my goodness, yes. I just enjoy having these conversations, Dr. Taylor, with really interesting people. as I mentioned earlier, just to talk about what motivates them and what keeps them going. And I just felt that the topic of your books on Juneteenth in this current reality is just really important. Not that we want to get off on a tangent on political discussions, although, we're free to do a little bit of that here. But I love the fact that you seemingly were ahead of the curve, because I got your first Juneteenth book decades ago. If I remember, like this real big am I remembering that correctly?
The big book was a Kwanzaa book.
That was Kwanzaa. Got you.
Yep. The smaller book was the Juneteenth.
Was the Juneteenth. Got you. That's right. That's right. And so, but just the fact that you are capturing these cultural celebrations in a time that others were maybe only tangentially talking about them, seemed like you had a sense, even when you wrote the Kwanzaa book, that we need to get this into our culture. Not many people know about this. And so talk to me a little bit about the Kwanzaa book. We'll get into the Juneteenth book, but what prompted you to write the Kwanzaa book?
Well, the Kwanzaa book was actually a book written by my entire family at that time. My son did the illustration, my daughter-in-law wrote the story, and I published it and served as the editor. But the purpose was to introduce that holiday to the American public, especially black folks, because many had heard of the holiday, but they never learned the proper way to celebrate it. And so it was sort of a how-to book, step by step, all the cultural symbols that you needed to celebrate it, and the reason behind why it was an important holiday and all of that.
Sure.
And so that was the impetus behind that particular book.
I love that you incorporated your family into that. How long did it take you all to write that book?
Oh, it took about 6 months, and then because it was so big,
it was really big.
and it had colored pages. We had it printed in China, and so that took about 8 weeks to get it to come back to us. So at the time, I printed like 10,000 copies because I knew it may be a while before we do the second printing. But yeah, it took about 6 to 8 months, and then another 2 months shipping from China.
Yeah. Again, that was. You must have jumped on that or gotten that really early on in the process of the popularization of Kwanzaa, because even when people talked about it, there weren't a lot of materials. There might have been a little blurb that you could read about it, but for you to have something that walked you through each of the days and the celebrations and the meaning of the Swahili words, that was a long time ago to be up on the importance of telling our history.
Yeah, that was back in the early 90s. And matter of fact, at that time, there were so few books about Kwanzaa out that book made the Chicago Tribune, the Dallas paper, the New York, it made all the national papers. And so it got a great deal of press back in those days. So,
yeah, and I love the way that you've helped to not only talk about the important holidays like Kwanzaa and Juneteenth, but you've also been really key in telling the stories that have impacted and lifted the Black community. For example, your latest film, Leaders of Madison's Black Renaissance, and I had the pleasure of being interviewed for that. I was really honored when you asked me to do that, and that wasn't even that long ago. And there was so much optimism in that about where the community is going. What do you do to hold on to your optimism while the world seems to be changing?
I hear you, but I think when people see leaders like you in that film. For instance, right now that the film was picked up by a distributor called Film Hub, and then they license it out to other distributors like Amazon Prime and Apple Pay or Apple something. But anyway, I've had feedback from Europe. I've had feedback from Africa.
Really?
I've had feedback from Latin America, and people are amazed at what the Black community is doing here in Madison. I've had white folks from California say, I want to move to Madison because if Blacks are having this kind of opportunity, I'm sure whites are having even greater opportunities. So it's received wide praise from around the country, but in many, not just one or two, but at least 7 to 9 Black communities have said, we need something like this in our community. Why can't we do that? There were some people from Las Vegas, they came here as a Motown act on the Square thing a couple months ago.
Sure.
And I took them down
I remember that.
Yeah, and I took them down to the Hub. And they were just totally blown away by all the things that are happening in Madison, because they were saying folks in Las Vegas still don't have their act together. That's their words. But it's been an inspiration to Black communities all across this country. So I'm really proud
That's
that people get a
fantastic.
chance to see the leadership that we have in this community.
Sure, we're going to put a link to that film in our notes for this episode. Dr. Taylor, remind me when you came to Madison. You came here for graduate school, or did you do undergrad here also?
Well, I first came in 1973 to 75. I worked at UW in the financial aid office. And then I left
That's right.
and came back 5 years after that because I went to Oshkosh for 3 years, and I went to University of Arizona, and then I got my master's at the University of Oregon. So within that 5-year period, then I came back in 1980 to Madison. I've been here ever since.
Was Miss Roxanne Allison working in the financial?
Yeah,
I was an UW admissions
That's where
officer.
I first met your mom at UW Madison.
Oh my, yes, because that's actually why we moved here, because she got connected with people, and her friend Dorothy Scott was going to school here. I don't know if you knew Dorothy or not, but she was in an education program and invited Mom. They grew up together in Chicago to come here and just see Madison, and Mom just happened to see the campus and fell in love. Oh man, I didn't know you. That's where you knew Mom from financial aid.
I was a baby dean. This was when I came back in 1980. I was a
Sure.
baby dean, and that's where I met her in the School of Letters and Science.
Oh my goodness, man, that's really cool. Do you remember any specific things about Mom that you can share in the air? Was she a kind woman? Was she a smart woman?
Yeah, she was very kind. She was very. No, I'm not just saying that.
No, I know.
But she was very kind, and I helped her out of a situation, and that's why I wanted to tell you personally before on the air.
Yes,
But
yes.
it wasn't. Again, it wasn't a bad situation, but it was just life, and she was. The committee that I was on, she got a second chance, and she just blossomed.
Yes, and thank you all for doing that, because she got in here, she paid cash. Being here means the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She paid for my education and my sister's education, and that was a game changer. I met my wife in college and things, but had Mom not come here and got engaged, I wouldn't have thought that it was even doable. Something that was for me. I love meeting people who have that institutional history, because hey, I knew your mom way back when, because I forgot that you were on campus back.
I was impressed when I first met her. I was immediately impressed.
Oh, that's wonderful. And had you known she was from Southeast Missouri,
oh man,
see, that's why you did.
got
Y'all
a
had
full
that
ride.
connection. She would have had a full ride.
If I'd have known that.
So you came here in the early 70s. Let me tell you, there are several things, Dr. Taylor, that I appreciate about you and respect. One is, it's very easy to come to Madison and say what Madison does not have and does not offer and leave. But you've been here almost as long as we have. We came here in 1970.
Oh, okay.
But you contributed. You wrote a book about Kwanzaa. You wrote a book about Juneteenth. You created a film about Black Renaissance. So you helped to tell the story in order to make Madison more livable, more acceptable for everyone. And so what motivated you to give back rather than just saying, I'm heading to Atlanta or Raleigh or Dallas to make it big, where there's more, when Black people leave, where there's just more, you don't stand out. People aren't trying to touch your hair or ask you why you say certain things in certain ways. Because I got my reason for why I did, but what would you say really motivated you to stay and to help make Madison so much more livable for everyone?
Well, my uncle used to work for, before the UW system became a system, they had individual colleges and stuff. And when they became a system, my uncle worked for the system, and he set up one of the first recruiting offices to recruit students of color. Like one of my cousins went way up to Superior.
Oh, sure.
And he had his office in Milwaukee, so he was recruiting blacks and Hispanics for all these state schools once they became part of the system. And so he was the reason that I came to Madison. But there was a leader that I grew up with. His name was Bobby Williams, and he really taught us about our history and our culture and the importance of giving back. And so I knew no matter where I would be, I would make a contribution, because my grandmother said a light will shine anywhere. And so just let your light shine.
Right.
And so I've always been committed to community. But what people don't know, when I first came here, I was so shy that I could barely even talk to people.
Really?
And they don't know that. There were 3 people, it's like we're sitting right now in this room, and everybody was talking, and I was so shy, I wouldn't even talk. And they thought,
Wow.
they had all kinds of strange things about me. What's wrong with him? All this kind of stuff.
He think he better than us.
Yeah, he's aloof. He's every name you can think of, I've been called. But I was just shy. So it took a long time for me to get out of that. And I think getting involved in all these different projects helped me to overcome some of that
Sure,
over time.
sure. Do you mind my asking your uncle's name who worked at the university?
Ed Spicer. Yep, Ed Spicer.
So I just like
Yeah.
to put names out there when people have done
Absolutely.
that kind of
He's
work.
done some incredible work. I put him in the documentary at the end when we were making the tribute to the our ancestors. But he definitely
Sure,
made a contribution to
sure.
Wisconsin. But most people have never heard of him.
You know, Dr. Taylor, I can say this because you probably wouldn't, but you have been one of those mainstay Black influencers who stayed in the background. You can come to Madison in 3 months, and the white community will call you a Black leader. The Black community doesn't do that, but they'll call. I remember somebody getting an award for being a Black leader, and they had been in Madison 6 months or less. I just said, that is quite interesting. But you've been doing all of this work. You know, you're not beating the drum for yourself. You know, you're not promoting yourself on social media. I just want to say I respect that you have exuded a level of leadership and influence that does not require the main stage or the big mic or the spotlight. But you've just shown how it's important for a person to just continue the course of doing good, giving back, educating people. And you model that extremely well. Was that due to shyness, or was that just a leadership strategy that you don't need to be out front to have impact?
I'm sure it was. I'd like to be able to say it was. I strategized all that, but it had nothing to do with it. But I have a core belief. I believe instead of praise, I believe in change, and so that's always been my core belief. You know, and like you said, I don't need the spotlight. Matter of fact, I would. If I could promote my books and all this kind of stuff without the spotlight,
You would do it.
that would be me.
You know, I know a lot of people who care about Juneteenth. You know, for a while, for a couple of years, Nehemiah was the fiscal agent for Nehemiah.
Sure.
Nehemiah is a nonprofit that I started you all back in '92, and we were actually the sponsors of it for several years. But you're the only person that I've known personally that's written about it, and so I'm just curious. Because it sounds like you had someone in your life that connected you with history, but what was the connection with Juneteenth specifically? And was that in your teen years, in your high school years, or something that developed more when you came to Madison for school?
It was something that developed when I came to Madison. I don't know if you knew Doc Myers, Reverend Myers.
Ron Myers?
Yeah, Ron Myers.
The physician and the
Yep,
musician?
yep,
Of
yep.
course.
Okay.
We were in the Ministers Alliance
Oh, is that
together
right?
here when I started the ministry in my late teens. He was brilliant. I think he
Okay.
did work down in Mississippi.
Oh yeah, and he led the movement to make Juneteenth a national holiday, and so
He led that movement?
Yeah, he led that movement. And if you get a chance to read my tribute to him in the book,
Okay.
please do so, because he was the one who got me involved. We met. I had started the Multicultural Publishers Exchange. That was a national organization of small publishers who publish books by and about people of color. And we used to have annual conferences. And Doc was very interested in the sort of the national structure that I had set up, because he was interested in setting up a similar structure so that he could promote Juneteenth as a national holiday. And so we met down at the Black-owned Perkins restaurant in Milwaukee. And after about 3 or 4 plates of ribs, Doc could eat. I don't know if you, but I have never seen anybody.
I seem to remember him eating well.
Doc could eat. But after 3 or 4 plates of ribs, I had to just step back. I said, Doc, I'm through. But we sort of mapped out what it would take to make this thing a national holiday. And I said, Doc, I don't have the time, because I think I was a dean at the time. I said, I don't have, but what I will do is I'll write a book that you can use, and you can give it to governors and all that kind
I
of
don't
stuff.
have a lot of time, but I'll write you a book.
And so I wrote the book, but he led the national thing. He ended up having 43 states in this country make Juneteenth a state holiday or a state observance, and also the District of Columbia. And right before he died, he was instrumental in getting Congress to at least put it on their thing to make it a law. And so
That's amazing. The local Madison Juneteenth needs to do a better job of talking about him and his role nationally.
absolutely.
But wow, I didn't realize that he was a part of heading that up. And he was a mover and shaker. Like I said, he was a jazz musician and a physician and a community advocate. He was extremely brilliant, probably ahead of his time.
Yeah, he was incredible. And I'm currently working with the National Juneteenth Museum in Fort Worth, Texas, Miss Opal Lee. You probably know her. I mean, you may have met her as well.
No, I have not met her.
But that museum is her ideas, and so it's in her honor. But this book will be in their gift shop, and my original book
should be.
And my original book will be in their museum. But Doc, they're going to have a special tribute to him in the museum.
Okay.
And so the organization he led was called the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation. And this organization has done a lot of things. They have a scholarship in his name and all this kind of stuff. And all the things that they have done and are doing, I mentioned in my tribute before the introduction in the book.
Man, that's fantastic. We need to find a way to tell his story, because we like to talk about people with Madison roots and
Absolutely.
the impact that they make on the state, the region, and the nation. And I knew he was outstanding, but I did not know that I didn't know of his connection between the Juneteenth and it becoming a national celebration.
Well, plus it'll make a perfect movie, because he had this old pickup truck, and he would drive around the country and talk to governors and talk to politicians and talk to black organizations about the need to preserve our history and the need to make Juneteenth a holiday. And I just took it to the next level to make Juneteenth a day of healing, make it something that could bring this country together if we understood our history and if we ever told the truth, and we faced the truth collectively. But Doc, I give him all praise for the work he's done. Absolutely.
He was also a huge figure within the CCDA movement. That's the Christian Community Development Association, started by John Perkins and run by Dolphus Weary out of Mississippi. Because we had a directory, and Nehemiah was in it, and so was his work.
Sure.
But their national convention is going to be here in 2 years, and I need to get in touch with the president to say one of your key influencers and early joiners in that movement is actually from Madison, because maybe they can do something special for him. I think it's coming here in 2027 or 2028, so I'm going to reach out to the person about that, Dr. Taylor.
Yep. And if you need his wife's address or email, just let me know.
I sure will.
Okay.
I sure will.
Yep.
You know, the story of Juneteenth is so interesting. Why black people didn't get the word, why it was Texas, what happened when they found out. There was just so many pieces of that makes the Juneteenth celebration really spectacular. But I'm curious for you, when you think about Juneteenth, what really resonates with your heart? Is it that it happened on that date, or people held their cool and their faith during that time? I'm just wondering if anything, what about the Juneteenth story really speaks to you and makes you want to continue to talk about it, dress up with. I love that shirt you had. If this weren't the church, I'd have to call some of my deacons and we have to steal that from you, because I think I could wear that. But what about the Juneteenth story speaks to your heart the most, that makes you want to continue to tell it?
Well, I think because Juneteenth is just one chapter in our story. And my book does not start our history with slavery. It starts with Africa. It starts with the beginning of civilization, so that people understand our complete history, that we were the first people on the planet, and we migrated out of Africa and populated the globe. And if people understood those connections, that we're all one species, perhaps their attitudes toward blacks might change. But this is a very comprehensive book. That's why I deliberately placed Juneteenth where it should be, not at the beginning, but as a continuum of our struggle. And so I think when people read this book, I think for the first time they're going to get a comprehensive overview of our history and how Juneteenth fits into all of that, and why this holiday is so important and so significant. But Juneteenth is not the ending; it's actually the beginning of our of the challenges that we still face.
Did you ever think that we'd have such pushback on the telling of our history, the books of our history? Because I, as the team was preparing for this, we were researching it, because we have planning meetings. We were talking about this. And I said, I wonder if Dr. Taylor had a premonition that one day there would be a temporary pushback, because this is not going to last forever, I hope. But I'm curious, is that true? Did you have a sense that, one day this might not be readily available, so I want to make sure that people have a story on a slice of Black American life and what we did here?
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons that I wrote it. But in I think it's chapter 19, The Legacy of Slavery, it talks about a through line of Black history, which simply means that since we've been here, there have been anti-black racist policies, procedures, laws that have followed us through from the very time that we got off the boat in 1619, although we were here much earlier. From that time till today, you've got these anti-black laws and policies. And so I wanted people to understand why, again, how Juneteenth fits in all of this, and why don't these anti-black laws ever go away. It's the same situation with Africa. You know, Africa, to this day, funds Europe. Without Africa's gold, mineral resources, you name it, France would fall apart. I don't know if you've been following what's happening in Africa, but there are three countries that literally kicked France out. And unemployment in France went up like almost 20% the first week. But anyway,
Wow.
I explained this in, I think it's chapter 7, the destruction of African civilization, and how Europeans, for the past 100 years, the whole world has changed. If you go back to 1900, you know, Russia was what even mentioned. The United States was dabbling in world history. But today, all of that has changed. But what has not changed in all of this time period is the treatment of Africa and its resources and keeping its people poverty. None of that has changed. And so until those policies and procedures change, this through line, it's going to be very difficult to change that situation. But Africa is rising, and I'm so proud of the leadership that's taking place in 3 of these countries right now.
Wow. Man, oh man, is it crazy out here. And I don't think it's just me. Look, it's 2025. Trump is back in office, and some days it seems as if the sky is falling. There's so much uncertainty in the world right now, but I love that sitting down right here in front of this mic and letting the hard truths rumble out of my heart and off my chest is as certain as it ever was. Season 11 is gathering steam, and you're in for a real treat. Let me just tell you. When I reflect back on all of the seasons that we dropped here at Black Like Me podcast, each of them has had a special purpose, a one-of-a-kind lineup of guests, and its own unique field. I also think about the thread that binds them all together. What we do here at Black Like Me is unique. I don't have another space that feels just like this, where I can really speak from my unique perspective. And the guests who have on the show remark that these interviews they do here are unlike any others that they've done in other places. Sure, nobody else does Black Icebreakers, but that's only part of it. We have created a truly unique space here where honest conversations about the thoughts, the ideas, the policies that affect Black people and that Black people care deeply about. And you know what? It isn't easy. And I don't do this all alone. I have an incredible team that has steadily grown over the years, and each person that joins adds another asset to what we can do here. And all of you that support us on Patreon, my people, my people, my people. We simply would not be able to do what we do or get what we have gotten without you. So as we look to even bigger and better things in the coming season, please help support the show right now by clicking the link to Patreon in the show notes and join the community of people supporting this unique and provocative space. In the world that we're living in, where there's so much attack on our perspectives, our history, our bodies, and our lives and contributions, aren't you glad you have a place where you can still hear powerful, exhilarating, intellectual Black thought like you do? I enjoy it. And so if you do too, share the good news, tell friends, click that Patreon link now. Thank you so much for your support of Black Like Me podcast with Dr. Alex G. Are there things that have changed positively about Black experiences, Black spaces, Black upward mobility since you first wrote your book about Juneteenth?
Well, I mean, we have experienced stuff that our ancestors could only dream of.
Right.
Of course there's been progress. It's like the farmer when he moves the post every year when he's planting. There's been progress. But again, that through line is still there. These anti-racist laws. So Trump is just the latest iteration. It's just it's always been the white supremacist policy that we still have not been able to burst that bubble. And until people collectively understand that we're all connected, that the only way to change is to form some genuine coalitions that look after human rights as opposed to property rights. We still have a ways to go.
Your steadfastness and your perseverance in your journey as a writer, as a communicator, as an educator, it feels like it stems from a deep sense and appreciation for who you are culturally and who you have been historically and what people, the people we descend from. And I just feel your very essence makes the case for making sure that Black people know our history, that we make sure that our children know our history, because that is part of the resilience, that is part of the resistance, that's part of the growth. But knowing who we are, so we're not moved, because there's something about your personality, and this has been the case for as long as I've known you, Dr. Taylor. You're staid, and that doesn't mean that you're in quagmire or that you're complacent, but there's been this centeredness in you. It doesn't mean that there's not, stuff raging inside you, but it's like you've been able, no matter what you've gone through, the society's going through, you've been able to show up the way you've shown up. But with a deep knowledge of an appreciation for history. And I'm just wondering, am I reading that incorrectly, or just understanding our deep history and your deep history, does that help to stabilize you when the world is crazy and the sky seemingly is falling?
You're probably giving me more credit than I deserve, but I do appreciate that. But no, I have some core values. One is that we're all connected, and that no matter what, I'm going to treat people like I want to be treated. But at my core, I'm an educator. And so I don't care whether it's a film or whether it's a speech or whether it's a book. I'm trying to make people more aware, because then maybe they will have a purpose in their lives as well. But my purpose is clear, is to make this place a little bit better than I found it when I got here.
And you're doing that, and I really appreciate that. We've always assumed, or many of us assume, that the best venues for understanding history for Black people is in schools. But we know that that's being messed with, and it's not often taught by us.
Sure.
Is it your feeling that that's the best venue for teaching Black history, or what other venues are there? If you could wave a wand, what would be the venues for helping Black kids know their history?
Sure. I think schools, of course, will always have to be one of those venues.
Sure.
But if they ban our books in schools, we'll teach it in our homes, our churches, our community-based organizations. So it doesn't matter what happens. We as parents and as thinking human beings have a responsibility to share our history, not only with our kids, but with all kids, so that they will have a different perspective of Black history and a different perspective of the greatness of the folks that we came from. So that's very important to me.
So we have to take responsibility, not just wait for teachers to teach our kids, because these books can be gone tomorrow.
Absolutely.
How do we equip ourselves as parents, as pastors, to be able to talk about
That's right.
the spaces? As a Black-led, multi-ethnic church, Dr. Taylor, we're probably 60% Black, 40% other, mainly white, and then Asian American. But we have to explain to people that we're not just multi-ethnic, but we're Black-led multi-ethnic, which means that we celebrate culture and importance of plurality and diversity.
Yes.
However, a lot of our theology and how we go about our worldview is really shaped in African American reality, how we found faith and success under duress, not being able to have access to stuff and still found a way to be excellent. That's our story. We want to bring that to everyone. So folks who are part of our church need to understand that when we talk about Black History Month in February and April and July and October, we're not being divisive, but we're also not trusting the public libraries alone or schools alone to get this information to our kids, because media and other outlets are painting images and creating imagery in the heads and the hearts of our kids that can be really destructive. Yeah. So I make sure that it's very clear that just because we're multi-ethnic and multiracial does not mean that we don't focus on race. But what gave me the skills to lead and build the way I have comes from the affirmation of the Black church, which was deeply rooted in liberation theology and the importance that if they don't do it for us, then we do it for ourselves, but we don't make excuses.
That's right. In fact, when I give talks about Juneteenth, sometimes I remind people that Black people were singing not because they were free, but because they believed in freedom. You know, when
That's so important.
when Black kids were literally ripped from their mother's arms and sold off to different plantations, these women on the receiving plantations, you know, still with their deep grief in their hearts, they would adopt these Black kids
Yes, they
like
would.
they were their own sons and daughters. When I was coming up in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and older persons could scold us, could lecture us, could discipline us, and then invite us in for supper, and nobody would even think anything of it, not even the kids.
Right.
And so we have that kind of history because our forefathers had to make families from slave auctions.
Yes.
And so we've experienced what no other people should ever have to experience. And so we have that sense of resilience. You know, we were the first people to walk the planet, and I have a feeling we'll still be around. We're like roaches. We'll still be around where there's a nuclear holocaust because of that resilience. We've been through, you name it.
We've been through it.
And so, and if people would just understand our experience and the wisdom from Africa, man, we could really change some things in this country.
Do you feel good about the progress of the awareness of Juneteenth and its celebration, or do you feel like it's slipped into something less than what it could or should be in our communities?
Yeah, I think people are still trying to figure out how to celebrate it. And that's why I always remind people, because there's Juneteenth chapters all across the country,
Sure.
remind them that you must have a historical piece in that celebration.
Sure.
You must always bring up that history, and you must always make people aware of that history and make people aware of the progress that we made and still the struggle that we still must continue. And so you can't forget that connection. Juneteenth is hope, but it's also sorrow.
So it's more than a great big party the third week
Absolutely.
of June, or where we can dance and have tents and activities. It must be about promoting our history and reminding our young people to elevate their thinking.
Absolutely.
And to carry our race
Yep.
forward.
And that's why I say it could be a holiday of healing if people are willing to face the truth about our past and then correct that history. Because when Blacks were freed, they weren't given 40 acres and a mule.
No.
They were just left essentially on their own. And they died in such great numbers that people hoped that they would soon disappear. And so when you look at that history, and then Jim Crow and Reconstruction and all of that were just broken promises. That's why it's important to know that truth. And that's what I was trying to do in this book, to give people an awareness so that once you become aware, you sort of have to act on that. You're never the same again.
Right. You know, a few minutes ago, you talked about the Multicultural Publishers Exchange. Does that still exist in any form today?
Excuse me. It died
I
out
love
about-
that concept.
About 10, 15 years ago. But it did last for a decade, though.
It did. You know, over the past several years, we're beginning to see again more Black-made films, and even Netflix and Apple TV are carrying us as filmmakers, but actors and producers and those kinds of things as well. Has the publishing and the writing world grown with the entertainment world concerning Black folks? Just like we move more into mainstream storytelling, I'm just curious. I don't even think I have an idea on this. But in publishing, have we moved similarly in that arena, or are we stagnant in Black publishers and writers?
It's changed because the industry has changed. You know, in the olden days, if you wanted to get your book published by a mainstream publisher, you had to go to the New York Housing, and you have to wait 2 years. It was like trying to win the lottery. But now with AI and with all the new technology, anybody can publish, but it has to be quality work.
Yes.
But and I'm only saying that to say is that now black folks control their publishing, sort of like musicians.
Sure.
They're indie piece, and that's where you want to be. You want to be able to control your thing, because if and I've had my books published by mainstream publishers. Let me give you an example. One book published, it was called The Guide to Multicultural Resources. That book sold for $59, but my royalties would be 10%. That same book for $59, if I publish it, especially after I create that publishing organization, I get $59. So why would I want to give a publishing? All I need is
great point.
distributors. And once a distributing is all set up, the distribution network is all set up, that's really all you need. And so now all these independent publishing associations across the country are so sophisticated. They have, like this book right here will be in Frankfurt in October at an international book fair. You name it, it's bookstores, because of the distribution network. I don't need to go to New York. I don't need none of that. And if people are aware of what's out there, then you become you empower yourself, and you can empower your community.
Well, I want to put a link to that book. And is the Kwanzaa book still in print?
Yeah, well, it's a smaller version is in print.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, because I want to make sure we put links, because we've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of listeners. I wanted to get a chance to benefit from your writing and your experiences. This is off subject a little bit, but was James Ball on campus when you came?
Yeah.
So he was
I have
part
many
of.
stories about.
Do you really? So he left campus to go work for HUD
Yeah.
in D.C., right? But he was in charge of the 5-year program
Yep.
with Ruth Doyle.
Yep.
That program morphed and became the academic advancement program,
Okay.
which I was admitted to the university through in 1981. But I think my mom and a lot of people, Maisie Jenkins, UW brought a lot of black people
they
here
did.
through that program.
Yeah,
but you were a contemporary of his.
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you some stories about Dr. Ball when we were not on the air, because these are people I would hear a lot about when I was on campus.
Yep,
And so
yep.
it's interesting. So Hazel Simonette was on campus when you were there.
Yep.
So you were still contemporaries of some of the students who participated in the 1969 boycott or whatever it was on campus. I mean, you came in 73,
I came in late,
but I would imagine some of the students, particularly graduate students, like Hazel, were still here.
Hazel and Kwame we were great friends.
I'm still in touch with Kwame
Is that
Salter.
right? Well, tell him hello next time you see him. 'Cause
I sure will.
He was supposed to buy one of these books. I want to make sure that he buys it.
You know what? I will give him, when we get the link, I will give it to him. Your folks, Kwame Salter was a big deal on campus. He was an executive at Oscar Mayer Foods.
Yep.
His granddaughter starred in Blackish. She was the
really?
oldest. She was the oldest kid. It was like an oldest daughter, then a son, then the twins.
Okay.
And then she got her own show called Grownish.
Oh, wow.
But that's his granddaughter. That's his daughter Kim's daughter.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So he's a good grandfather, and I'm sure she's a good granddaughter. What were you like as a kid? Were you an avid reader? Did you have a sport you liked? Did you like to fish?
Yeah,
What did you do?
I played sports a lot, but again, I was a shy kid. But I definitely played sports. But all the other kids would, even though I was shy, if we had a club, they would always vote me as president or something like that.
Interesting.
But
Why do you think that was? What did they perceive? Because it's not what you were saying.
Right. They trusted me, because they knew I wouldn't, screw them over or anything. So, but they always elected me president. So, but yeah, I was active in sports. I was in the Scouts. It was all that.
I was a Cub Scout, a Weeblo. Yeah, I did all that stuff as a kid.
And I was active in church. So, and we had this little blackboard, and I would draw the little pictures for Sunday, whatever the Bible story was about. I would try to.
You're
draw.
an artist?
Well, no, but I just took the chalk and just drew it so that would be something on the blackboard when people came in.
My goodness! And did you stay in Cape Girardeau until you went away for college, or did you all leave before that?
I went to undergrad at Cape at Southeast Missouri State, And then
Is that in Cape Girardeau?
Yeah. Yeah, we have about 14,000 students now.
Really?
So it's a nice size.
Did you live near that restaurant where they throw the rolls? Is that called Lambert's or something like that?
Lambert's, where they throw the rolls?
The hot rolls
Oh.
the buns
Yeah,
or rolls?
it was downtown, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Because when we're in the area, we try to go by there just for it's like an overgrown Cracker Barrel. But they would throw you those rolls and they would serve it with some sorghum. I've never been in a restaurant that serves sorghum until I went. It made me think about Beverly Hillbillies and Granny making some of that sorghum. Who were some of your mentors? You talked about a gentleman who taught you history.
Yeah, Bobby Williams.
Bobby Williams. Besides Bobby Williams, were there teachers, cub den mothers, den fathers? I'm forgetting the troop leaders that saw your leadership potential and motivated you.
Yep, and also my grandmother. She played a very important, because my mother died when I was 5. So
Okay, I didn't realize that.
So I had a stepmother most of my life, but my grandmother certainly influenced me, and people in the church, they and even my teachers, they
saw something.
They saw something, and if there was any kind of quiz shows or where you had to use your brain, they would invite me to come on, even though I was shy. I knew this is how shy I was. I knew the answers,
And wouldn't raise your hand.
and I couldn't. I don't know how I got that shy. I don't even know how I got over it, but it was that way.
Towards the end of your retirement from Edgewood College, somewhere in there, you were the dean of the business school, although your background's in economics. And so how did they get you to be the dean of the business school with your background in curriculum and instruction?
Yeah. People ask me that all the time. But I worked at Cardinal Stritch. They had a business division, so I headed that up. I worked at Herzing, and I was a vice president of academics, so I
remember that.
over all of that. At UW, I was a baby dean, but that was in letters and science.
What's a baby dean? Assistant
baby
dean?
is you don't have your PhD. You're working on your PhD.
Oh.
So they call you baby deans, the ones with
That's
the PhDs.
what that is.
Yeah. And so, but you have to make all the decisions they make, but you don't get their pay because you're still a student. You're still working on that PhD. But and the businesses that I've started, but I didn't really have no strong background. I started off at Edgewood as a adjunct, and then I came back as a assistant dean in grad school, and then I'd worked with everybody because Edgewood's small, and I worked with all the folks in the business department. And when the opening came up, they literally came over to Herzing. They brought a little group and recruited me. And so I said, all right, I'll give it a try. And so, but I don't want to speak too poorly of that, but that wasn't the best fit for me,
Okay, I got you.
because my background is more social justice, and history, because all I wanted to be was a historian when I was coming up, and so I got sidetracked, and the business that was probably more of necessity, just wanting some security, because once you get married, I've always taken risks, but when you get married, sometimes your spouse wants to have a little bit more security.
Sure.
And so I sort of went on that track. But I learned some great things there. I made some great connections there. But and I'm still in business, but now I'm just doing it my way.
Mm-hmm. For the writers who love history, who are coming up behind you, we don't need to write books on Juneteenth because you've written it. But what would you like your Juneteenth book to spawn in others? As a response, what's the ripple effect? What would you love to see people write about, Black people write about?
Sure. I'd like to see them expand on some of the topics that I have here, and really go deeper into the history. And literally, I want us to sort of reconstruct history from the very beginning, when we walked the land in Africa, and then really tell the story. How did we get to Australia? I mean, during the Ice Age, I don't care how much ice was in the oceans. You need a boat to reach Australia from Africa. And so we built ships before anybody built ships. And if you look at some of the oldest bones they found in Europe, white skin only emerged in the last 3,000 to 8,000 years. And so I want people to expand on that so they can connect all these dots. And then they can begin to understand that literally we are one species, but we got off track. And we haven't been able to find our way back home. And in my opinion, until we do right by Africa, we're never going to find our way back home because that's our roots. That's all of our roots. And until we straighten that situation out, we're going to be like a person just paddling in water.
Do you still travel quite a bit to talk about your book, and does that take you overseas as well still?
Yes, it does. But I just had a marketing company because they're still marketing this book, and they're marketing two things. They're marketing the book sales by the carton, so they don't do individual sales, and they're marketing my speeches. But the only way I'll do speeches is by Zoom, because I've been to all 50 states. I've been all over the world. I'm tired. I'm,
You don't need to do it.
I'm 75 years old, and so I just want.
You don't look it, sir.
Well, thank you, but I want to just slow down a bit. So,
Sure. And with technology, you can command that. You can actually you can do that. In this crazy world, crazy times, what do you do to take care of yourself? What does self-care look like for you?
Well, Cam and I walk. That's my wife. We walk every morning. Like today, we
love
walked
it.
4 miles.
4 miles.
4 miles. And so, but 4 miles is still nothing. I want to walk at least. I know it's not much, but I want to walk 5 miles.
That's much. It's much.
One more mile. I got a membership at the Princeton Club that I haven't used in 8 months, and so. But that's the kind of stuff that I know that I need to do. I need to eat right. After you have a heart operation, you're supposed to eat right and all that.
Sure.
But I said the heart operation was 11 years ago. So, but no, I know I got to do better on that end.
Sure.
Absolutely.
If we had a magic wand here and we can wave it and create a dream job for you, what would call you out of retirement? What would it have to be? Like a political position, business, in Hollywood? What kind of job would it have to be?
No, because I'm doing what I want to do.
Okay.
Like the books I'm writing, and I've worked on all kinds of projects, and I still work on projects that people don't even know about. Behind the scenes, and so that's fulfilling for me. The only one major project that I want to do before I kick the bucket is this children's musical I did on Roar. It's a children's fairy tale. I want to turn that into a full-length movie. I've got about 6 minutes already done.
Really?
And I sent it to fairs. What do you call it? Film festivals. I sent it to film festivals, and it won first place in a couple of film festivals. And
Really?
it's a musical, and the song won first place and all of that. And I was right before COVID. I had a committee from Hollywood. We were actively meeting every week because they were going to try to turn it into something. But after COVID, they lost their jobs, and so everybody went their separate ways. But I was that close to getting it finished. So I want to try to do that before I call it a day.
Man, you are extremely talented. I have a friend who worked for years for NPR. His name is Charles Monroe Kane. You may know him.
No.
He had a show on To the Best of Our Knowledge. And he said, Alex, with your podcast, when you have authors on your show, you must have them read something from their book because you need to just capture that in their own voice. And so take a moment, because we're going to edit the gap out, so it's going to seem like just a moment. But if there's something in your book that's particularly salient, I know the whole book is, but if there's something that just resonates with you, or I would love for you to take a moment and just read that and then pause a minute and just tell me why that's important.
This is from chapter 2, and it's entitled From the Beginning, Africa Before Enslavement. Our story does not begin in chains. It does not start with the cries of the enslaved or the crack of the whip. It begins in Africa, the cradle of civilization, where humankind took its first breath, where innovation flourished, and where freedom was the natural state of existence for thousands of years before the world knew oppression. To begin Black history with slavery is to erase the brilliance that came before, to strip away the pride of a people whose legacy is far greater than the suffering they endured. Before the forced migrations, before the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade, there were kings and queens, scholars and artisans, architects, and philosophers. That is where our history begins, and reclaiming that truth is an act of liberation.
Wow. And let the church say amen.
Amen.
That is very powerful. Dr. Taylor, I got a call from an art curator about a month ago and said, hey, I saw a great exhibit. I'd love to pay for it and have it donated to the center. Let me send you a picture of it. It was a ship that looked like a casket, and it had like skulls in it and chains around their necks. And I said, no, thank you. We're good. I don't want to be offensive. I just thanked him. But the name of our center is the Center for Black Excellence and Culture. There's no room in that story for the horrific experiences, tossed on us by Europeans and white Americans. But it's interesting, when he thought about our Center for Black Excellence and Culture and it being rooted in a rich history, the period that came to mind was slavery and these skulls in a boat with chains around their necks. I mean, I'm still kind of traumatized by that. And I don't traumatize easily, but I had to look closely. I had to open up, I had to have an iPad. So I had to take my hand and just kind of open up that picture and say, what did this man just, what did he call me? It's almost like he was, said your mama or something to me. But I love the reminder of what you said, because our center is not going to pay any homage to slavery, because our strength was able to shine through that. Absolutely. But that's such a blip. 500 years is such a blip in our broad history in this world, how we've influenced theology and medicine and education and leadership, that we're not going to let something on American soil limit our story. And that's what I heard as you were reading that excerpt, that Black history does not begin in those dark places. And I love that you're committed to that. But I want you to know that I'm a partner with you in focusing on what have been the untold stories, what has been our superpower, what did we eat, and what was the role of faith, and what was the role of singing and laughing and crying and playing the dozens, or the jonesing with friends and talking about back and forth and talking about folks. There's so much that speaks to our resistance, and I love that you touch upon that in your writings and your activity, because we've got to let people know that what they think of when they think of Black history is not Black history. That's really white history being inflicted on Black people.
Absolutely.
But that's more of a story of them than it is of us.
Yeah, and my whole book counters that whole Eurocentric narrative. And so, matter of fact, it even explains how we got that narrative and why it must be challenged. And I think when people understand that, and they understand our history, and that it was deliberately erased, it was deliberately submerged, and the reasons why it was done that, then maybe they'll begin to want to learn more on their own. That is certainly my hope.
Do you have any fear that you're going to wake up one day and history as we know it, Black history in particular, will just be gone and erased and deleted from websites? Do you have any fear that one day people just won't be able to find these resources?
No, because it's here, and so it'll always remain with us. Even when they destroyed everything that we had, it was still here. And so when they brought us here, we knew how to plant rice. We knew how to build buildings. We knew how to do all that stuff, and we've never lost that. We've fallen by the wayside, certainly, but the skills, the knowledge, it's a part of our DNA.
Sure. Dr. Taylor, the narrative is, well, we've got to get these materials out of our libraries because they're making our young kids feel badly about themselves. First of all, Black people are not going into schools teaching young, second grade white kids that their great-great-grandparents may have been, slave owners. We're not going in doing that. Right. I think what's happening is that somebody is smart enough to understand how empowering our history is and how looking at it is significant, and that this strategy of doing more than giving us backpacks and handouts, nothing against those things, of course, but that you equip someone, a Black person, with the true strength of how we built this nation and made it a superpower and all the things that we've done. I think the fact that it's been so effective, that there's an attack on it, but I don't think it's white second grade children they're trying to protect. I think it's white democracy they're trying to protect, because when we understand our history, we understand our future,
Absolutely.
and they can't shut us down once we know that.
Yeah, and it's white supremacy that is being protected, but our history is too consequential to be ever denied its richness. I mean, if people understood just 1/10 of what Black folks done, their jaws would drop.
Right.
And so it was Dr. Can't think of his name, Persimmon. He's in my book. He wrote before Columbus. I can't think of the name of the book. But,
Sure.
But anyway, he would always talk about that we don't have to create myths about Africa. If people understood the truth about Africa, it would be more astonishing than any myth that we could ever create.
Yes,
And
yes.
so that's the kind of truth that I want to share, and hopefully I do share in this book.
We do. It's a beautiful book. It's beautiful. My last question, who's more surprised that you wound up in academia and specifically in administration, you or family members and friends of yours growing up? Who's more surprised at your career trajectory?
Probably me, because I started off, I wanted to be a historian, that's all I wanted to do, and then ended up with, life is never like this.
Right.
It's more like this, but I'm probably more surprised than anybody else. But if you ask me if I were to do it over again, I'd probably take the same path.
Okay, and that is what I was thinking. No, I appreciate that. Dr. Taylor, thank you for taking time to be here. There's going to be a link to your movie, a link to both of your books, and your anything else that you have and own and still operate. We're going to put links on it because I believe in supporting our entrepreneurs and my colleagues, and we have people from all the states listening and around the country listening, and I love exposing them to new people. And again, in your quiet and sort of laid back style, you have impacted how we as a nation think about Juneteenth, how we as a community think about it, and your work has inspired people like those in my congregation and myself in the work that we're doing. And I can't wait to not only give you a tour of the Center for Black Excellence and Culture, but when you're there giving lectures on your book and talking to community influencers about your work. So I just know that I salute you and your intelligence and your tenacity, and I consider it a real treat that you're still a part of our community. And I'm glad that Cam didn't tell you we got to get up out of here. I'm so glad. I'm so glad that she's comfortable living here as well, so that you all are still here. So thank you for coming by today, sir.
Well, thank you, and if you allow me to also be a cheerleader, I can't respect you enough in the work that you've done, and even this podcast. You're sharing messages that probably were stories that would never get out, and you're sharing these all across the country, and so you've made a significant difference in this community, and you continue to make a difference. So thank you so much.
That means a lot to me. Thank you, sir. I your note to me in the book that you gave as a gift was very heartwarming. So I appreciate it. Folks, listen, check out our new public-facing group on Facebook. We have these scintillating conversations like this, and we don't want to just go right back to, watching the U.S. Open. We can record that and watch it later, but you want to talk about it while it's fresh. And so come on over to Facebook and have these discussions and keep this dialogue going. I want to say thank you to my wonderful team who have made not only this episode, but this podcast a wonderful experience. Mr. Eli Steenledge, Mr. Jeremy Holliday, who both produce and edit the show and have done so for all 200 plus episodes since the inception of this podcast. Don Thornton, who secures our great guest, and Ariana Proctor, who curates and moderates our listening space. She's waiting for you right now. Get over there to Facebook. And Ms. Jakesha Hunt, who handles our wonderful podcast merch. I want to thank all of the listeners for making this exciting, for making time to subscribe and be a part of this. I want to specifically thank the folks who are part of my Patreon team. You have clicked that link, and whether you support this podcast for $2 a month or $25 a month, you have to make sure that this project continues to go, that we have this excellent quality. And I particularly thank each of you as Patreon supporters, because you could have done a lot of other things with your resources, but you've decided to invest to really make this a possibility. And others who have not done that, click that link now because there's still room for more. And for as little as $2 a month, you can become a part of the group that helps to sustain what it is that we're doing. Listen, it's my honor to be able to bring these great stories and to introduce these great history makers to the nation and to the world. And so I really enjoyed our conversation today. So if you enjoyed it, repost it, write a review, talk to some friends about it. You know, people that need to hear this or listen to it. Do something with what you have heard in order for us to get this message out.
Black like me. Black like me.
I want to thank you for taking time to listen to this episode of Black Like Me podcast with Dr. Alex G. If you like that opening track of our theme song, you can show your appreciation to Corey Saffold, who created that and produced it, and Marcus Fleming, my cousin, who's on vocals. I also want to say that this podcast was started with the generous support of the Human Family Unity Foundation, and so we always want to stop and thank them for that. For the many patrons who support us through our Patreon page, thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't just listen, but you support, you lean in, and you help this podcast to be what it is. And then I need to thank you, the listeners, who make a point of downloading this, listening to it, and sharing it. Without all of you, this podcast would not be what it is and what it's becoming. Thank you so much.